All right, this is a question I get all the time. Graphite versus steel in your irons. How do you choose? I'm going to give you 3 ways to help you make that decision. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So this question comes up all the time, people wondering about graphite versus steel in their iron shafts and how do you make that decision. So I'm going to be giving you 3 different ways to help you decide what's going to be best for your individual game. Also, while we're going through this video, I'm going to do a little side-by-side comparison using graphite versus steel in 3 different weights and flexes, hopefully just to sort of reinforce what we're talking about through this process. First way to figure out graphite versus steel has to do with weight. Now it used to be, you go back 25 years or more, steel, graphite, very different, occupied very different spheres. You had steel, much stiffer, much heavier, much more consistent. You had graphite, much lighter, much more flexible, and not quite as consistent. You fast forward to today, however, and the lines are much blurrier because you can get steel that is extremely light and you can get graphite that is extremely heavy and very consistent. But that being said, I do still think that there's kind of a cutoff when it comes to weight where really this has to do with steel, where steel just no longer makes sense or can't quite perform as well as a graphite, as a carbon fiber shaft. And for me, that weight is somewhere around 85 to 90 grams. So basically, in order to get a steel shaft under 90 grams, or any lightweight steel shaft, you have to thin out the steel to make it lighter. And at a certain point, the steel is just going to be, it's hard to get that steel that light, which is why graphite becomes such a good option. For me, again, around that 85 gram range is about as light as I would usually recommend someone going in steel. So this is steel. This is the Nippon Neo, the 850, meaning it's 85 grams in regular flex. Again, trying to keep it around 70 miles an hour just to hit a few balls. And this would definitely be the lightest that I would really consider using in a steel shaft. Anything lighter than this, I think graphite becomes pretty much the default choice. All right, now I've got the Aerotech Steel Fiber Flight Control 80. This shaft, pretty much the exact same weight as what I was just hitting. They're both right around 85 grams, give or take a gram or so. So basically the same. General launch characteristics, pretty similar. The 85 is maybe supposed to hit it a little higher, but again, the weight being the most important thing, that's really what we want to focus on here. So let's see what happens. Again, let's see if we can keep it right around 70 miles an hour. Here's all the numbers on these 2 shafts. 85 grams, swung at about 70 miles an hour. Very similar results. Hit one of the steel fibers, maybe a touch heavy, but again, very close. So number 1 way to figure out steel versus graphite, weight. If you are in that lighter weight range, under 85 grams, I would definitely recommend going into graphite. All right, I'm now moving into the next weight class and the next flex up. So we were at 85. I've now moved up into 105 grams to talk about the second way to decide between steel and graphite. Right here, I've got the Fujikura Axiom 105 in stiff, and I'm trying to basically swing here right around 80 miles an hour for my swing speed. So the second way to decide between graphite and steel, once we've gotten past the weight option, has to do with vibration absorption or shock absorption, because graphite, carbon fiber shafts, second to them being a lot lighter in what they can do with them, they also offer much better shock absorption when you're hitting golf balls. So if you've got shoulder pain, elbow pain, hand, arm, whatever it is that is exaggerated or exacerbated by hitting a lot of golf balls, then going into a carbon fiber shaft, going into a graphite shaft is going to be a good option. Again, at this weight class where we are at 105 grams, you can find exactly what you want in graphite or steel. They will perform very similar. But if you have some of that joint pain, then the graphite is definitely going to give you a little easier time. It's going to be a little kinder on your joints. Let's hit now a couple with this steel shaft, 105 grams. This is Dynamic Gold 105 in stiff, and again, trying to keep it right around 80 miles an hour. Now that was a little thin. And I can tell you from hitting it a little thin, with this Bettinardi muscleback head I'm using, I definitely can feel it. You definitely get that vibration on that thin shot. Let's hit another one. Try and hit it a little more solidly this time. That was better. That should give us around 80 miles an hour club speed. I think that's around 78 miles an hour. We'll see. Again, these shafts, same weight, 105 grams. They're both stiff. They're both design-wise supposed to launch the ball pretty similar. They have a pretty similar profile to them in how you feel swinging them. So it really just comes down to, do you want that graphite? Do you want that vibration absorption versus the steel that's going to give you a little bit more feedback? Okay, the numbers for the 105 gram stiff flex shafts in graphite versus steel, very similar numbers overall. I pulled out the one shot that I hit really thin with the Dynamic Gold, but again, that really sort of encapsulates what I'm talking about here. If you catch it a little bit thin with that steel shaft, you're going to get more of that feedback, you're going to get more of that vibration. All right, I've now moved into the next weight class. We've gone up again to 120 grams and extra stiff shafts. So now at this point, I'm basically trying to swing at full speed. Hopefully that's somewhere around 90 miles an hour. But we've got two shafts that are both right at 120 grams. They're both extra stiff, similar launch profile to them again. The first one being this Nippon Modus 3 120 in the X. All right, I've just switched into the LA Golf 120 gram extra stiff L series shaft for the third reason why you might go with graphite versus steel. Now in general, I'll just tell you, if someone comes in here and needs 115, 120 or heavier gram shaft, I'm almost always going to default them into steel shafts. The reason I do that, just look at the professional game where the majority of those players are using 115, 120, up to 130 gram shafts. And I would say probably 98% of them are all using steel shafts. So if the best players in the world are doing it, with one exception basically, then why wouldn't the rest of us do it if, again, you need that same weight? Now this does also mean you don't have arthritis, you don't have joint pain where that graphite shaft is going to be beneficial. But assuming you don't, there is this one other reason why you might go with the graphite, with the carbon fiber, and that really just comes down to you like the feel. Again, going back to the vibration, going back to the shock absorption, a graphite shaft is going to just feel a little different versus a steel shaft. It just is a different sensation. And for some golfers, you're just going to prefer that feel versus the slightly sharper feel of a steel shaft. It's the same reason that some people like a running shoe with more cushion in it, and some people like a running shoe that's a little bit harder. Or you might drive a car that has softer suspension, or you might drive a sportier car that has a little bit more rigid suspension. It's really just personal preference. You just like the feel of one versus the other. So again, if it doesn't come down to a weight issue, and it doesn't come down to a pain issue, then it might just come down to a feel issue, and you might just like the feel of a graphite shaft versus a steel shaft, or vice versa. Here are the numbers for the 120 gram extra stiff steel versus graphite. Again, very similar numbers overall. Now there is one other reason why you might pick a graphite shaft versus a steel shaft, and that is, well, the graphite shafts can just have some cool looking finishes, some cool looking paint jobs on them. The steel shafts in general all look pretty similar. Graphite, you've got a lot more options. There's a lot more varied looks to them. So for some people, that can be as much of a decision maker as anything. All right, hopefully this helps you decide whether steel or graphite is going to be right for your irons. Again, figuring out if you need that lighter weight, if you need that vibration absorption, and third, if you just like the feel of steel or graphite. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down below, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted when I post new videos. If you want to get in contact with me about a fitting, a custom build, a repair, all my information is down below in the description, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.